Okay, sorry. I had to pause real quick because I had to gather my thoughts. Uh, the weekend, it was a lot. It was a lot to take in. So I'll go ahead and finish off Saturday at Calypso. And the only thing that really stuck out with me within that practice that Kaizen guided us through is that I it's nice having a daily yoga practice or a weekly yoga practice, whatever it is, because personally, I am beginning to see the strength and the power that I have as far as holding poses or getting into a pose. It's really wonderful to see how I'm able to, again, it goes back to the convincing my mind that I can do hard things, or it's only troubling or tough in the moment and it'll soon be over. So that is really what stuck out to me for these Saturday practices and what we did. Again, the breath, it was understanding that I can give in to the breath, and just at one point I think it just kind of flowed in and of itself, and it's getting a little bit easier during the practices that I am not having to really remind myself to breathe, unless we're kind of like in the middle of a teaching moment where, the instructor pauses to explain something to us while we're all holding a pose. Other than that, I am really not I'm not having to force a breath, but it is cool because in the practice for Calypso, the yoga at Calypso, I am noticing that when I do breathe, I can move into the pose and I can coordinate the pose and the slow movement to where it's not such like the pose, it can move like slowly into the, how am I trying to say this? The one asana can flow into the next, and I'm learning to match my breath with that flow, because I used to maybe like the breath was jarring, but I'm learning that the inhale and the exhale can flow just like the pose. So that's really cool to notice. And I'm still focusing on. So that one's still intentional as far as like, okay, when I transition to this pose, let's try and make the exhale more of a fluid like transition, if that makes sense. So that'll be the end of that recap. Saturday, I think, was so like, I don't want to say tough. I'll say tough just to make it understandable. Saturday was pretty tough on my body because like we woke up early and then we finished with yoga outside. I was personally in a sunspot. I did that to myself. I know, whatever. So I sweated a lot, if that's even a word, sweated, whatever. So that day when I was done, I had a hard time creating my own little synopsis. So I think that's probably why, because I really pushed it, but it was a good practice. So now we can move on to Sunday, which I wrote a lot down for Sunday. I finally had like my journal out and I was making sure to write down everything that came out to me. So I guess, let's see. We started off with Tadasana. So that's going to be easy for me. Me personally, I am just fluent in languages, I guess. I wouldn't say like I pick up on them easily. I would more so say that I am very adept at being able to pronounce different languages with ease and with, what's the word? Like, I don't know. I'm just able to pronounce things really good. And like Spanish, I've been good at pronouncing things in Spanish. So with this Sanskrit, I like it. I'm able to pronounce these things. So that's fun for me. That's the pronunciation of the Sanskrit shouldn't be too difficult. So first we went over Tadasana. And this one, I liked Leah made it super accessible for everybody, easy to remember, the whole Tadasana. So that was cool. I love mountain pose. I like how sturdy it is. I love how it's a grounding pose. You'll learn throughout this whole teacher training, if you don't know me already, I love grounding. I absolutely love grounding. I don't know much more I can say other than like grounding is my go-to. So for the mountain pose, we talked about really checking in. It's a nice place to check in. So it's a really good asana to begin your practice with because it gives you a moment to check feet, check your posture, check your arm length or your arm width. Are they, are your shoulders back like this pinched, or are they, neutral spine? Try not to pinch your shoulders, all that good stuff. But it is really focusing on that foundation, and that's a good one. So I liked how we discussed the neutral, not natural, because of everybody. It was fun. We got to go around and look at everybody's different feet and, how they stand. It was really cool to know that within a practice, sometimes you're not going to tell the yogi to fix their V into, even feet. If that's where they land, then that's their natural spot that they land in. So that was really cool, is that, again, I've known this about yoga. Yoga meets you where you're at. And so that is a really, really good one for me. That's probably another one that I'll say it along this whole, thing, along this whole teacher training, is there are aspects of yoga that really stick out to me. And if I talk to people about yoga, that's one of the key points that I will tell them, is that yoga meets you where you are at and you meet yoga. So it's super, super amazing to know that about Tadasana, is how we can land in the pose to a certain aspect to where, then we get into, okay, this person needs gentle cueing as far as like, okay, you see how your foot is turned out. We're going to bring that and make sure it's even. So that, again, will be a learning moment for me. That I'm still kind of nervous about, is cueing people and getting comfortable enough with watching the body and knowing what to adjust. So, but I know we're only beginning, so I'll only get more comfortable. So on Tadasana, I did have an aha moment thanks to Kaizen. When we were in Tadasana, he had us all close our eyes, hold our hands out, and the aha moment was Kaizen adjusted or activated my arms. So he had us, even though our shoulders were back and down, I was over back and down, so I was really pushing my heart space out, but it was really hurting in my shoulder blades, and I just kind of assumed that was correct because my shoulders were activated or whatever, but it was causing the shoulder pressure. And then when Kaizen went around and showed us how, yes, it's over and back, but then our hands come forward a little bit, and that helped activate the arms a little bit more, the shoulder pressure disappeared. So I wrote that down as my aha moment because, like I said, I was shoving my shoulder blades back too far, which is creating unnecessary pressure on my shoulder blades. So the key point was that even tiny adjustments, and the adjustment that Kaizen made was just tiny. It wasn't going like this. It was just bringing my palms forward a little bit more, a little bit further than my hips. I don't even know if it was further than my hips. It was just a little bit. How the tiny adjustments can lead to big differences. Positive meaning big. So then we turned to our partner and we did the hip adjustments and tucking the tailbone and stuff like that. That was interesting because when we did that, it was almost so subtle that I wasn't really grasping what Kaizen was talking about. I was, but I wasn't. The first two that we spoke about, the one about the sacrococcygeal flexion, and then the counter nutation of our sacroiliac joints, those ones were a little bit harder for me to grasp. But the second one, the posterior tilting of my pelvis, that one was easier for me to understand. So I understand that the tucking of the tail is ever so slightly that it's almost hard to miss. But what helped me was, like, personally in my practice, was focusing my mind's eye on the changes happening from within. So that was interesting. Now we can move on to, let's see. Oh, we did the samastatiti, samasatiti, blah, 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 blah. Samastatiti, samastiti. There we go. Oh my goodness. Samastiti. That was hard. That one was good. I really like when we are cued, when the yoga instructor cues us to really bring our shoulders into our ribs, because it feels more intentional as opposed to just like this. Because you think, when you think yoga, you think like Om, but it's nice when we are cued to, bring the shoulders, the elbows into the ribs. It just makes it feel more intentional and more, just a little more activated. So that one's nice. Super interested to know what Leslie says as far as the feet placement. I find it very interesting, side note, that people will pick up on different things. Like for me, I just know where our feet placement is as far as like kind of just like knowing because of practicing, I guess. But it's interesting to see it in a book how Amanda picked up on, well, the feet were together here and the feet are apart here. So that I didn't even pick up on that, didn't even notice that, but Amanda did. So that's really interesting to see. Then I wrote down Uttanasana. Let's see. It says never tell somebody to go into Uttanasana because if they speak fluent Sanskrit, they might go into full exorcist back bend is what I wrote. So I believe what that means is that Uttanasana is just, let's see. It's standing forward bend. So because Uttana means spread out, I think what we spoke about is that it just means bend or something like that, to spread out. So if we tell someone that, they might say, oh, okay, back bend, got it, and then just fold. It doesn't, I think what we were saying is that it doesn't say specifically, Uttanasana in Sanskrit doesn't tell you which way to bend. So that's funny that I wrote that down. So this is where we got into the hamstring, the piriformis, and the gastrocnemius. One other aha moment that I learned from the anatomy was that hamstrings, in order to repair hamstrings, you don't stretch them out more. They need rest, not stretch, which I'm guilty. I'm one of those people who had tight hamstrings or had just worked out and then the hamstrings were going. And then I would stretch them because, oh, it feels so good to stretch the hamstrings. I must be doing something right? Well, I shared that message with my mom yesterday or today about what I learned is that, the hamstrings, well, we think it feels good and it's doing something positive for the hamstring when actually we just need to do nothing at all and just let it rest. So after Sunday, I let my hamstrings rest on Tuesday, and they were tight Sunday, Monday, and by Tuesday they were fine. So I'm like, got it. Let the hamstrings rest. So then we talked about a little more, I think we talked a little more about Tadasana and Uttanasana, and then we talked about cueing people and how you got to meet the person where they're at and you have to pick up on their bodily cues, which goes in hand with being comfortable with staring at somebody's body, where we could say, okay, for Tadasana, engage your piriformis, engage your what is it, gastrocnemius. And the person's going to stand there and they're like, am I doing it? I don't know, because they've never done that before, or they don't know what it feels like. Kind of like me and the thing that we were talking about for tucking the tail and those kind of instructions. I was like, I'm going to stand here and pretend I'm doing it because I have no clue. So the cueing goes hand in hand, like, okay, are you doing it? Can I touch you? And you kind of help the person focus mind to muscle. I can't remember what that's called, but focusing their intention and their mind on that area. And then again, Leah says, whether they're doing it or not, kudos. If they're like, oh my goodness, yes, then we leave it at that. That's amazing. So it says, let's see, in Tadasana, poke them right in the piriformis. That's what I wrote down. Being mindful of fake or facade injuries, because a yoga class filled with Uttanasana might not be for them. So if somebody's coming in and they're saying, yeah, oh, my piriformis, it's really giving me heck, so let's go into... Then I think what we were saying is that whether we know about the piriformis or not, we need to be mindful of how we then lead the practice, because then if we're saying, oh, okay, I hear you, your piriformis is hurting, we'll do some uttanasanas and that should really help get into that, when actually that might not be right for their, whether it's a true injury or not. It is important to err on the side of caution as an instructor, and also to adapt your practice confidently. If we believe, or let's just not even say if we believe, whether or not we know truly what this injury is, it's best to say, okay, well, I will take care of that and we will have a safe practice, and then go, like Leah said, maybe do your research if you have time to step aside and do the research, or not, err on the side of caution. Whatever you do it confidently as a yoga teacher. And I feel like I need to say, like, trust yourself. Trust yourself in these practices to know that you'll know the right thing to do. And if you don't, be honest. I'm not really sure what that is 100%. Mind if we Google it together or whatever? I'm more of the person where it's like, we're going to be honest about this and I don't know what that is. And we'll move on from there. We'll see what the next step is. So that is what I wrote for that. And then I guess I'll go over the kind of places that I've marked. The Uttanasana. It was really interesting. We talked about breath and how the breath coexists with yourself during Uttanasana, and how I think I noticed that even though when you are over in forward fold and then you exhale, it almost feels restricted, but then you can try and get all of that air out. And that is allowing you for a more tighter bend, a more closer and deeper stretch, which I really like. I'm a sucker for deep stretch. I mean, we already know I'm super, super malleable and flexible. Another side note, I'm also learning that deeper stretch doesn't always mean better stretch, right? So I'll get into that in just a little bit. Then, let's see. Then we spoke about Balasana. Let me find Balasana. Here we go. Balasana, child's pose. Balasana. Okay. So for this one, I think an aha moment for me, and I can confidently say maybe everybody else, is that the child's pose is not always a calming pose for everybody. And I don't know why I haven't ever thought about that before. That was a really true aha moment. I had a couple of aha moments that I wrote down in my book, but we'll move on in just a second. But yeah, which makes sense because everybody's body is not the same. The way their muscles stretch and react and bend, and their injuries or no injuries, that is all different and unique to a person. So like Amanda, tall Amanda, her body is going to want to sit differently or want to move differently into Balasana as opposed to my body or Tim's body or Jenny's body. And so it's super, super cool to witness that, and it just clicked. And that goes hand in hand again with getting comfortable with looking at the body and seeing how we can, okay, this pose looks a little stretched or a little forced. How can we help this person? Get the props ready. Make sure you've got plenty of props out if you're going to be doing Balasana or Uttanasana, And that too, I want to get better at, because I think in my mind, when I begin looking at someone's body, you're going to immediately think, okay, how do I look in Balasana, or how do I look in Uttanasana? And I'm going to have to check myself there because I'm not going to be able to compare in my mind's eye my balasana to Ocean's balasana. So I'm excited to I'm looking forward to learning the different forms and the different bodies so that way I can see, okay, that balasana is good. Like she's in there good. It looks like, she's safely in that position versus, okay, I'm going to have to adjust her here. Ask her if I can adjust. Ask her if she or he needs a bolster or whatever it is to make that practice better. I'm looking forward to getting more comfortable and knowledgeable about adjustments and stuff like that. Another aha moment was, I feel kind of silly saying this, was that the diaphragm is a muscle. What? The diaphragm is a muscle. Wow. I don't know why I've never thought about that before, but anyways, these are why we do these things. We learn. Okay, so that was my aha moment, was that the diaphragm was a muscle. So the diaphragm is part of another system, which is the respiratory system, which is the most important aspect of everything. Respiratory and the diaphragm. The diaphragm is really being used, obviously, breath, you're you're expanding and you're contracting. So that makes sense that it is a very important aspect of all of these poses, whether or not it's being activated or not. So knees together in balasana. Should balasana be activated or no? I think that is just every person's practice. Whether or not it looks to me to be activated, we encourage with cues. If you want a little more activation, really push into those fingertips